The reaction from MAGA, as I mentioned in a different segment, has truly been stunning to the selection by Vice President Kamala Harris of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to be her vice presidential running mate in this presidential campaign. MAGA is just losing it. They're melting down. And you'll see some of that here, but mostly I now want to balance the craziness. And we have an upcoming segment that's bonkers. Robin Vaught, I think his name is, released a video, and it's just disturbing. So we got to balance that out with some sanity. And here I have for you Fox News liberal Jessica Tarlov doing just that. So I'll play that. But first, just to give you a sense of what she's responding to, they are really desperate. And you almost understand it because this is a devastating moment for MAGA. Really understand that. In the real clear politics average of polls, Kamala Harris is now narrowly leading. We went from way behind, it seemed, to woo. Now she's leading in one of these averages of polls. It's so exciting. And that's devastating for them. They thought they had this thing in the bag. And now everything's changing. And the momentum, you can feel it. You can feel victory in the air for the pro-democracy movement. And the selection of Walz makes that even more likely. And so in this devastating moment, you have Jesse Waters saying this.
Jessica, I have to ask, why did he honeymoon in China?
What?
He's been to China 30 times. That's strange.
Oh,
I find
you
that
see there with Hunter Biden?
suspicious.
Okay.
Someone should look into it.
Okay.
Desperate. Number one, I have no clue if that figure is correct. Number two, I don't care. Number three, it could have been, during some trip related to being a congressperson, or he just finds it a very interesting place to go. Regardless, totally irrelevant. And I don't think anyone cares about that in their voting decision. And then a funny little quip here, and then I'll show you a longer clip of Jessica Tarlov.
Oh, no, I got mine.
Okay, so
I got plenty
So here's
of mine.
the question, Jessica. To Jesse's point, apparently the Trump campaign is rather pleased with this pick. They think it'll be easier to beat them.
Yeah, they're definitely projecting that. I saw J.D. Vance this morning in front of a huge Kamala sign where you couldn't even read the chaos. So everything is going really well for that side of the aisle. And they were...
Yeah, they're...
going to... Oh,
she said they were going to. I'm assuming she was going on to say they were going to pretend that anyone who is selected makes their job easier. They know it's not. Reportedly, there's panic behind the scenes about the Kamala Harris campaign. And the strength of Tim Walz as a running mate, there's no way they actually think it's easier. But they, of course, have to say that. And it was funny what she referenced, and then I'll play this minute clip, but there was this funny photo going around of a J.D. Vance event, and behind him, it's supposed to say Kamala Chaos, but the chaos was covered up, so it just looked like over his head, it was a Kamala event. It was so awkward. It was really funny. But here is Jessica Tarlov making some fantastic points.
and that Governor Walz brings a lot of experience that she wanted on the ticket, not only his time in Congress, where he was, I think, the 7th most conservative Democrat in the House, someone who is a gun owner, someone who does have those Midwestern values, but his executive experience in Minnesota. And I've seen, and Jesse just radiated some of them, the attacks on him as a socialist. I don't know what kind of socialist runs the number 6 best state in America for big business. Target is there for a reason. 3M is there for a reason. United Healthcare is there for a reason. General Mills is there for a reason. And the kinds of things that he has gotten past are exactly the kinds of things that Kamala Harris wants to talk about. Things like paid sick leave, $2.3 billion into public schools. He did a huge infrastructure bill.
Was this your top pick?
If you would be so kind and you're not already and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate just by clicking that subscribe button. Easy, free, but it makes quite the difference. Back to the video.
Yeah, actually it was. In the last couple of days, I was honestly happy with all 4 finalists. And if it had been Andy Beshear, Mark Kelly, Tim Walz, or Josh Shapiro, I would have been happy. But what you're going to see is the right trying to define him as Jesse did. But you're going to see that side-by-side picture of Tim Walz after he signed free school breakfast and free lunch. And someone like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is a star in the Republican Party, got a prime speaking spot at the RNC, signing a bill to allow kids under 16 to be able to work. That is the contrast here. A guy who wants to put food in kids' bellies and someone who wants kids to be able to work. And he's the real deal. He is what J.D. Vance wishes that he were. And
so you're questioning whether...
beautifully said. That list of things she went through is why the hosts around that table are devastated. You can tell in this moment. There was this, I won't even say arrogance, just let's say confidence that we saw from a lot of these MAGA leaders. Feeling so confident that they were going to win. And in the blink of an eye, everything changed. Imagine that. Even though, as I will continue to say, I should put this up, as a banner behind me, because it really is, I think, what I want all of you to tap into. Because it can't just be team sport. We want the people that we don't like to suffer. Ha. That's what we oppose about MAGA. That's what they seem to want. Retribution. We really want to win so that even their lives can be made better by the policies we believe will do that. And so for them, even though I really do believe that they need to lose, they deserve to lose in this election. And then, like I said, we'll all win because of it. But on a human level, you can't imagine how horrifying that would feel. To be just, we're going to win this thing, which is how they felt. You can think justified or not about the election. And then all of a sudden, the polls just swing. And now Kamala Harris is leading in the Real Clear Politics average of polls. What? A swing like I've rarely seen in politics. Her favorability just spiking, as I showed you the other day. And all of a sudden, they're panicking. And so that's the context for this conversation. And then for Kamala Harris to select someone who checks all these different boxes. You do have his Minnesota appeal, as they said, living in a small town, etc., being a gun owner. But you also have someone who, as governor, has been very aggressive in his policies, portrayed to be a very progressive governor, as he is. But his time in Congress, he was a pretty conservative Democrat. His voting record, photos circulating of one of those visualizations of all the members of Congress on a political spectrum based on their voting record and where you place them. And he's just really centrist. So then that weakens the line of attack. And then they go, well, he was really far left as governor. But the quote-unquote far-left things that they're talking about, there's some things here and there they're going to really obsess over. They'll obsess over trans-related things that he signed into law. But what the response is, all right, let's go through the list. And she went through some of the things there. Investing more in education. Investing more in housing. Investing in infrastructure. The photo she mentioned is just the best photo. It's what politics should be, which is Tim Walz hugging a bunch of children after he signed into law the universal free meals for kids. That being split screened with Sarah Huckabee Sanders signing into law the loosening of child labor laws interstate. And the photos, Tim Walz is smiling and everyone's hugging him. Again, we looked at this in a different segment. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders is smiling, but all the kids around her are super serious and grim. Aren't you happy? You're gonna get to go work now, you little kid. So different, priorities there. Protecting reproductive rights, protecting democracy, universal background checks on guns, paid family and medical leave, and showing you can do these things. Obviously, we knew this, but maybe MAGA folks or swing voters could be compelled by this and still be a very friendly state to big business even, which is sort of the opposite of what you perceive a socialist to be, which is Jessica Tarlov's point. You're going to try to call him a socialist, but then CNBC, and I did fact check this since the last time I mentioned it, and it is true, CNBC ranked Minnesota the 6th best business state. And so in so many ways, he represents what the Democratic Party should be. And because Kamala Harris is still trying to, or working to, and clearly successfully, define herself as her own entity, right? Her own brand, separate from being Biden's running mate. And given that she had a lot of bad press as VP, redefining herself and clarifying where she sits on different policies, given that her presidential run in 2020 was a certain set of things, her time as a senator, then her time back, this isn't legislating, but known as a more moderate person because of the law enforcement side of her record, and making sure people know where she now stands, what is the campaign she's running in this moment, based on the priorities right now. And the selection of Tim Walz is a really perfect way to start that process, and she's already started it, but to introduce people to her and introduce people to her decision making, because in deciding him, she's sending a lot of signals to people. And one of those is that she really doesn't just want to win. She wants to win, but she wants to win and then be effective. Because there's an argument, Josh Shapiro, and he also would have been a solid pick, but would have been better electorally because of Pennsylvania, and he's really popular in Pennsylvania. If she wins Pennsylvania, this thing could be over. But I think one of the things that went to Walz is his experience and the efficacy of governance and the type of things he's implemented matches perfectly what the actual governance would be post a victory. Not just about the victory, that's top priority right now, but also effective governance. And so for all of those things to be on the minds of people, and to see Republicans, think about this. One of the things that I want people to think more about is we do want really good elected officials at the national level, but the state level is so important, and often you can do more stuff at the state level. And so if you can think about the contrast between the two parties as the two individuals, Trump, Kamala Harris, the difference in the core values of the two quote unquote sides right now, the Republican Party consumed by their most extreme faction, the Democratic Party united around a very common sense agenda, and pro-democracy, threatening democracy. So all those, we want to contrast all of that. But another way I do think is to say, look at the Democratic Party and the way that it manifests with all of its flaws, but on the state level. Because the current notable Democratic governors are all showing what it looks like to just, in a very unifying, non-divisive way, get to work, get things done. People like Josh Shapiro, Tim Walz, Gretchen Whitmer, Andy Beshear. And so when you think about that up next to what we've seen from Republicans lately on the state level, the horrific, draconian anti-reproductive rights, the obsession with demonizing LGBTQ Americans, sometimes passing laws that impact literally a person, or proposing laws at least. I'm trying to remember the exact example, but one state, I think there was one example of someone, they were passing a law, trans athletes related, that whole thing, and then even passing laws related to drag queens and trying to prevent stuff with that. That's what they're doing. And Democrats are just boom, 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 boom on the state level, actually getting things done that people want done. So that contrast is also really interesting. And I think that's why Walz, in another way, as one of the most effective, I think probably the most successful Democratic governor in the country right now, is a really strong choice. And the case for voting for the MAGA ticket now is so weak. You have, I know I'm going along with this, I'm so pumped. You have a vision on one end. You really do, for what's next. There's fear of the bad stuff that could be done by them, but there's hope for what we could get done for everybody. There's this brighter now, this bizarre, I can't describe it as anything other than the vibe of this combination of individuals. There's just a bright, hopeful vibe to it. That sounds so woo-woo. I'm getting a bright vibe from Harris, Walz, bright. No, that's not what I mean. But just a hopeful energy, optimistic. And then you have this really dark, fear-mongering, dehumanizing sort of message on the other end. And I believe I believe that America is going to side with the correct option. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. If you want to donate to the candidacy of Harris Walz, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of this video and help us reach our goal of raising $1 million by 1 million subscribers.